Hi, and welcome to the podcast channel at podcastmybusiness.com.au and for video content made easy.com.au. And today we're welcoming Byron from Sublime Studio.com.au. And we're talking about a really important topic, which is founders and entrepreneurs and stress, which is what Byron specializes in. How are you, Byron?
Hey Tony, good. Nice to be here, and hello to your audience.
Thank you very much. And it's a forgotten, I'm not sure if it's a forgotten topic, but people don't realize the amount of stress entrepreneurs and business owners when they start their business. So what do you think is some of the key stressors? There we go. There's a nice technical word that they have when they start up.
Yeah, sure. Well, starting a business is filled with all sorts of challenges, uncertainty being one of the main ones. You know, your audience who have started a business know that you have plans that you've got, and you get excited in that initial phase and you get into it. But of course, you come up with all of these challenges that you didn't expect. And those challenges are everything from your product being, what you want it to be, sales, dealing with people, all of these different things in running a business. But I think, Tony, the bit that's also really important to talk about is that it's not in isolation. Of course, we're also family people, we're also partners, we're also friends, we're also trying to look after ourselves outside of work. And so this topic of well-being for entrepreneurs, it's beyond just the business itself, and it's actually looking holistically at the entire person's life, because at the end of the day, if the entrepreneur is well, then their likelihood of success is also increasing, and that's what all the research shows.
Yeah, exactly right. And you have family and friends that you've got to help and deal with and look after, but is there such a thing as what you need to prioritize?
Yeah, so I always think about it in terms of values. So not values in the sense of just having a nice word that we can say about ourselves, but actually thinking about it like cups. So if you imagine, Tony, that your audience, your entrepreneurial audience, who have got all these different cups in front of them, some of them will be related to the business, making an impact, financial success, all of the cups there that they're trying to fill. But actually recognizing that there's also other cups, like, say as a parent, or say as a friend, or your own self-care. And so in terms of prioritization, it's really looking at those cups and going, okay, how are my decisions aligned with those values? Am I filling the cups that I need to? Now, at times as an entrepreneur, we need to make trade-offs. And that's one of the most interesting parts of my work as a psychologist who specializes in entrepreneurs, is actually looking at, okay, how are we making the trade-offs between where our time, energy, and bandwidth is going to fill these cups? Because it would be great if the jug of water to fill the cups could fill every cup to the top, and life would be great. But of course, it's not like that. And we're happy to make trade-offs between, say, time with family and working on the business, looking after ourselves, doing sales, all of these trade-offs are happening. And so the focus is really about trying to understand, okay, what are the costs of not filling certain cups, and am I okay with that? And if I'm not, then I need to make changes. If I am, then be at peace with that and continue with the course of action that you're on. And that's a lot of the work I do.
Yeah, so why are founders so good at looking like they're coping?
So it's a little bit in the culture of founders of the startup community, which is, just stiff upper lip, as the English say, and just kind of push through. And, that's sustainable for a while. But what all of the research is showing, and the main measure that I use, is called psychological capital. So we measure that here at Sublime Studios for all the founders that are members with us. And looking at that and understanding that in the way that you are in terms of your mental resources to deal with the challenges that are ahead of you, what it's really showing is that correlates with performance in the business. So what they found is that sure, a founder can sort of pretend like they're coping and put on that brave face, but actually if behind that decision making is getting tougher, burnout, relationships are suffering, all of these things, it's not only having an impact on the individual from a well-being perspective, it's also decreasing their chances of having business success.
So how do you think all that hiding affects their mental health?
So it can infect, it's different for different people. It can really affect it in all sorts of ways. You know, for someone that's having challenges with, say, dealing with stress and anxiety, it's not that stress and anxiety is a bad thing necessarily. It's there for a very good reason. It's often very much a catalyst for action. If we talk about something like anxiety, which is fear about a future outcome that hasn't yet happened, stress is a little different. Stress is about things, you know, my to-do list here and now. And so if we look at something like that, which is a very common one, it's about trying to support, not to eradicate the stress or eradicate the anxiety, because as you know, Tony, and your audience will know, that's not possible. I don't know how to do that, nor do I know anybody else. But what it is about is making sure we don't go into the red zone. And that's where having tools and strategies like making sure that we're able to ground ourselves when we need to, making sure that we've got an outlet to be able to verbalize what's actually going on in our head so it doesn't become something bigger than it is. And all of these type of strategies to actually be able to make sure that something like stress and anxiety, it's not about eradication, but ensuring that we don't go into the red zone so we can show up as the founder we want to be, but also again show up as, say, the parent we want to be, or the friend we want to be, or the brother or sister we want to be. And that's really important to be thinking about it outside of just your role as an entrepreneur.
So how do you know when you're in the red zone?
Yeah, again, you know, different people have different warning signs. I think one of the ones that I see with the founders that I'm working with is where you start to feel like I'm not able to deal with the challenges as well. I'm losing the bit of the motivation to, you know, there might have been a time where you see challenges with the mindset of almost embracing the challenges, because that's another thing to say, of course, is that if we choose to be a founder, it's kind of par for the course that challenges are there. Like that, it's like being a captain of a boat and expecting to go out there and there not be storms. Of course, if you're a captain of a boat, you know you're going to hit the storms. So it's being able to recognize, okay, so the storms are coming. How am I going to actually be able to deal with them when they're there? And what are the warning signs to answer your questions? So, you know, being able to make decisions, your communication with your co-founder, for example, you know, how is that? Is it getting shorter? Is the way that you're interacting changing? You know, really recognizing, I think behaviorally is the easiest one for people to recognize. How are your behaviors being changed? And if they are, then is that being driven by the stress or anxiety or any other impact that's there? But it's the behaviors I would focus on if I was answering that question of what are the warning signs.
So interestingly, a lot of founders know they need to be more visible online, but of course that can add another layer of pressure, putting up posts and things like that. So how should founders think about being found online without feeling like they have to perform all the time?
Yeah, so I do a lot of work with authentic leadership. So working with founders who are trying to show up in an authentic way that's aligned with their values. Now, yes, of course, there is a pressure to make sure that you are seen online. There is a pressure to make sure that you're visible. And for some businesses, that might be right. You know, they need to do that. For some others, it might not be, and they need to make that decision. But the bit that I would really encourage and always encourage is, what type of person do you want to be when you're showing up online? You know, what is the authentic version of you rather than the mask? So are you somebody that's very much about, you know, information giving, and you want to just be sort of adding, you know, insights and new things? Like for me, when I'm online, I'm really trying to improve people's psychological awareness, give them tools as founders to deal with the pressures that come with being a founder of a business. You know, that's what I keep within that. Now, there's other people that do other things to online and other ways of sort of getting interest. But if I started to try and stray away from my core values of how I want to be putting myself out there, that would be stressful. And so my advice is to people is just being really clear on, you know, what is it that how do they communicate in a way that's authentic to them as a leader? And if you stay within that, it tends to decrease that pressure of needing to put that mask on, because that's tiring. That's tiring over the long haul.
Yeah, so you mentioned the word tools. So what sort of tools would you recommend?
Yeah, so I start with a really simple one, which I call dropping the anchor. So this is one that is used in all performance. So, you know, if you're looking at the World Cup at the moment, football, which is on at the moment, they'll all have their own version of dropping the anchor. And what it looks like is it's 3 simple steps, and the acronym is ACE for your audience to remember. And the first step is just to acknowledge when you are feeling stressed, or you are feeling anxious, or you are feeling a little overwhelmed. And you can do this just with a simple, okay, I acknowledge right now I'm feeling a bit anxious. I've got a lot going on. I've got all these sales targets that I'm really trying to hit. I'm feeling anxious right now. So already by just acknowledging the state that you're in, it's like acknowledging the storm when you're out in a boat as a captain. Just acknowledging it allows you to then, okay, now we can deal with it. So that's the first step, acknowledgement. The second step is just to control your body. So no matter what's going on in your head, if we're able to do something like feel our feet on the ground, take a deep conscious breath, feel our hands on, the chair that we're sitting on, what it does is it short circuits your brain and stops you from worrying, ruminating, being caught up in that anxiety. Our brain literally can't attend to both things. So the second step is to control your body. The third step is to connect with your environment. So have a look around you, connect with something in your environment, and what that does is bring you into the present. So the acronym is ACE for your audience. I'm sure you can pop it in the show notes as well. And as I said, this is being used by every professional footballer that you see stepping out onto the field for the World Cup. They all have their own version of dropping the anchor. And the best founders that I work with are very good at being able to ground themselves even when they're in that storm of anxiety, of stress, or of whatever else is going on for them. So that is an absolute baseline tool that I think your audience will get a lot of value from.
Great, thank you. So just to expand it a little bit, so what should investors, teams, or partners understand about founder well-being, and what should they look out for?
Well, the first thing you should understand is that psychological capital is a performance multiplier. Like, let's just put it like that. Like, this isn't about, psychological capital of an entrepreneur is as much of a business lever as any other form of capital in the business. And that's not just me saying this as a psychologist that specializes in entrepreneurs. This is what the research shows. And Tony, if we keep on the topic of sport, they're 5 years ahead of us. You think about, there's no sport team that would put their players out onto any code of sport onto the field without them having had proactive psychological support to make sure that they can show up at their best. Entrepreneurship is about 5 years behind, but we're catching up. And so that is the absolute first message is that, yes, of course, this is about us being well as individuals, but this is also about having a better chance to make the impact that we want to make as people that are trying to make the world a better place in whatever form of business that we do. So that is absolutely my core message to all of those groups that you just talked about then. And I believe that as an industry in Australia, we're moving towards that, and we're catching up with the attitude that sport has towards a proactive approach to psychological performance.
Yeah, you're right. There's that attitude of go hard or go home. And I remember when I first started, it was that attitude when I was setting up my business. I did ask broadly and get advice from various people, but you think, I must work until midnight to get this done because I need to get it done.
Yeah, and you know what? There probably was, Tony, a time where working till midnight was absolutely fine for you. And this is what I say to the founders I work with. Let's not judge the behaviors based on whether other people are doing it or it's what we read in some book. Let's base it on, is it right for us? Is it aligned with our values of where we're at right now? So for me, for example, in my 20s, 30s, I was absolutely fine with working weekends. Now I have a young family. My values have changed. For me to be working weekends, there would be a huge cost, back to the cups. There would be a huge cost on the cup that I have around family and being a present dad. So I'm not going to be working weekends because I'm not willing to bear that cost. So this is a really important one for your audience here. It's not about the action itself being right or wrong, working weekends, working till midnight, whatever it is. It's about whether right now for an individual, is that action aligned with their values? Are they okay with that action? And that's how we want to think about these things, because things do change as we move through our entrepreneurial journey, and we want to be aware of our behaviors changing with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd wrap up with, what would you say to a founder who feels like they cannot admit that they're actually struggling?
I would say that it's okay. Excuse me. I would say that it's okay. I understand how there is that inclination to feel like you need to, put on that tough face. But then I would say in the same breath that you are not alone, that we are all as entrepreneurs going through different challenges. And one of the things that I see all the time that happens, and we do a lot of community events with Sublime Studio, is that when you talk out loud about what's going on, you'll find that it's going on for everybody else as well. You're not alone in it, and that through concerted effort, you're able to deal with almost any of these challenges that are presenting themselves from a psychological perspective, and that in that effort that you put in, not only will you improve your own well-being, but your likelihood of achieving what you want to achieve with your business will also increase.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're right. We all forget about the mental toll, and we think, oh, we've got to suck it up and toughen it out. But you know what? That can be dangerous as well.
Yeah, it can be dangerous to your own well-being, but also, just to sort of really put this point home, it's also going to make you less likely to be successful. Like, that is what all the research shows. And so why do that to ourselves? Let's put a proactive energy into our own psychology, into our own psychological performance, for the betterment of us, the betterment of the people around us, and importantly, the betterment of our business.
Exactly. Right. Is anything else you'd like to add?
No, only that I really encourage your audience to try some of the things that we talked about today. If they're interested in learning more, we have a lot of free assessments on the sublimestudio.com.au website, so they can measure their psychological capital. That's a really popular one with entrepreneurs. It'll give you a breakdown of where you're at, and it will give you some practical tools that you can have a go at putting into place within your own roles as leaders of your business.
Great, and I'll put ACE in the show notes.
Yeah, great. Sounds good. Thanks, Tony.
All right, thanks, Byron.